At the PlayStation Showcase, we got our first look at Spider-Man 2 and the brand new Wolverine game coming to PlayStation 5. Today on the show, we're going to break down the latest article coming out of the PlayStation blog, give you some details, as well as what we think the games are going to be all about. That episode for everybody is right now. It's Friday. Everything's about Marvel on Friday. Doesn't rhyme, do not care. Got a lot of Spider-Man going on over there. Hi, Matt here from Assemble. Welcome to the show. Today, we're going to talk about the PlayStation blog article that came out talking about Spider-Man 2 that is scheduled to release in 2023. We got our first glimpse of this in a little teaser trailer, as well as the updated news coming out of the Wolverine game being cited over at the PlayStation blog. Now, if you all go on to enjoy this episode, do Matt a big favor and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 5,000 subscribers, which is absolutely bonkers. You guys are all fantastic for supporting the show. Thank you so much. The PlayStation Showcase event was fun. I had a great time. I thought it had some dips and some lulls, but overall, I really did enjoy the conference. I liked seeing that we're getting the Uncharted remastered. I like the updates to Gran Turismo that we saw. Deathloop is coming out, and then just the first party titles, obviously, on the PlayStation Studio side, and Insomniac just absolutely crushing it, as well as God of War. It's all super exciting if you're a Sony fan. Let's start off with Spider-Man 2. Like we talked about the other day in our full Reacts episode, we know that we are going to get a brand new game from Spider-Man 2 coming out in 2023, and we've got hints of Venom being in the game. We know that Spidey's in the game. We know that Miles Morales makes appearances in the game. Now, some fans had been asking if this was going to be a co-op game because obviously we saw the clip with Miles and Spidey both in the game itself, but Sony has actually confirmed that this is going to be a single-player experience. Ryan Schneider over at the PlayStation blog writes this, quote, "Marvel Spider-Man 2, we're so thrilled to continue the journey of both Peter Parker and Miles Morales in their most epic single-player adventure yet, coming exclusively to the PlayStation 5 console in 2023. While pushing the capabilities of the console will be very exciting, we're equally pumped to craft all new stories for Peter and Miles in the sequel. Just as in our previous Spider-Man games, we not only want to tell a great superhero story, but also deliver a compelling human story, one full of heart and humor that dives deep into the people behind the mask." Now, what I love to hear is that, great, I'm totally good with another Spider-Man single player. I don't really need co-op in my Spider-Man game. What I would guess, just purely out of speculation and based how the previous games have worked, my guess is that we would get some missions where we are splitting our time between Spider-Man and between Miles. And then getting missions, obviously, where they both overlap and intersect, where they're going to take down enemies together in a co-op style, but you'd be controlling one hero at a time. That's just Matt's little speculation and guess. And I really wonder, because of the size and scope that they could take with Spider-Man 2, they're going to want to make it bigger, more powerful with the power of PlayStation 5 exclusively, this game exclusively on the console. I wonder if they're going to expand the entire size of the game in terms of how long the campaign will be, side missions and things like that. If they're going to have both heroes in the game, I wonder if some of the missions for when you're actually going to go around and do any side missions, if you would have the options to be able to play as Miles or Peter in doing split missions, and what kind of enemy variety we could be getting in the game. What I'd love to know from you is, who do you think we are going to get as kind of our main antagonist in this game? We saw in Spider-Man 1 that we had a number of villains coming out of the woodwork for this game that maybe were kind of one-off, or we had our main antagonist like Doc Ock. Now, as we know that Venom is in the game, this is really cool. There is the news coming out and everything that Kraven the Hunter is actually going to be in Spider-Man 2, and I wonder how they're going to tee this up. Is Kraven going to be Venom? Are they going to have two separate villains going at it? What about Goblin that is in the background too? There's a lot of moving pieces, which is really cool. And I think if you have both Miles and Peter both in the game, you can tell some interesting stories that are interwoven, but you could also have them a little bit separate, where you might be having Venom and Peter going at it and Kraven and Miles going at it on the other side, and then they all intersect. But what I love is the variety. I love Insomniac Games and what they did with Spider-Man and what they did with Miles. And I think that this is going to be an incredible game. The PlayStation blog continues on, and the article goes like this. Much of the development team that brought you Marvel Spider-Man is returning to produce Marvel Spider-Man 2, including Brian Intihar, who's the creative director, and Ryan Smith, who's the game director. Today's game footage trailer is merely just a glimpse at what's in store in terms of the new abilities our heroes will acquire, suits they will wear, more on that some other time, and the villains that they will try to hunt them down. And speaking of villains, did you catch that final end of the trailer? We're so happy to announce that Tony Todd, the Candyman fame, will be voice acting the symbiote-fueled Venom in Marvel Spider-Man 2. And then obviously the voice actors for both Peter and Miles are making their return to the games respectively. Now let's shift gears for a second and talk about the other Marvel property, the other Insomniac game that is going to be coming out. We don't know when, but it's going to be later. It's going to be past Spider-Man 2, and that is the solo game of Wolverine. Now, in the PlayStation blog, they go on to write the following regarding their want to be able to create a Wolverine game. The article reads like this, quote, "Wolverine continually came up as a character we'd really be stoked to work on together. Fast forward a couple of years and we're suddenly standing in front of a Sony Interactive Entertainment and Marvel formally pitching a PlayStation 5 game starring the adamantium clawed mutant. So many of the Insomniac team are such huge fans of the character, and one of the key elements that drew us to him is surprisingly not that different from Spider-Man. Both heroes feel deeply compelled to defend people who are less able to do so." I love the idea that we could be getting obviously it's Logan, it's Wolverine by himself, and getting that story. I feel like based off the environment and that it is Wolverine by himself, could it be set up in Canada? Could it be set up as Wolverine with his old yellow and brown suit that I absolutely love, and setting it up as a solo game where Wolverine might have a few enemies to take on? Maybe it's going to be a smaller game, and by smaller I mean the size of like Miles Morales. Because on the PlayStation blog article, they go on to say, quote, "Marvel's Wolverine is a standalone game being directed by Brian Horton, creative director, and Cameron Christian, game director, who recently led the creative efforts on Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, a game we're extremely proud of at Insomniac. In the vein of our Spider-Man games, our goal here is to not only respect the DNA of what makes the character so popular, but also look at opportunities to make it feel fresh and truly reflect the Insomniac spirit. Even though Marvel's Wolverine is very early in development, from what I've seen of its emotional narrative and cutting-edge gameplay, the team is already creating something truly special." So for both of these titles, everybody, I am so excited that they're going to be next gen. They're going to be running solely on the PlayStation 5, which means we're going to get them optimized experience. And because these two were the game director and creative director behind Miles Morales, I feel that the Wolverine game has a really great shot at being not a smaller experience, like I said, but one like Miles where it could be 10, 12, 14 hours to be able to complete the campaign, but a ton of side content, DLC, additional content for you to get your claws into. See, Wolverine, wishing, no. But you'll be able to get a ton of additional content in there if we know Insomniac games and their pedigree, especially with the Spider-Man titles. But it builds so much confidence in us that as players, as fans of Insomniac games, that we're gonna get a really, really cool, interesting solo Wolverine story where it really gets into really the lore of the character. They're gonna have those emotional conflicts, probably gonna have to save somebody, but I love that it's not just shoehorning Wolverine into something else. But let me know in the comments below, who do you want to see as Wolverine's big antagonist, big bad guy that he's gonna fight in this whole game? When do you think we would actually get it? Because if Spider-Man 2 is coming out in 2023, I can't imagine that Wolverine would even be ready until 2025. And that's okay. It's far off into the distance, but we have other games like God of War, like Spider-Man 2. I love the direction that Insomniac is going by being able to put out multiple Marvel titles on PlayStation every couple of years and keeping the quality as high as they do. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of the PlayStation 5 showcase, Wolverine, Spider-Man 2? What do you want to see for villains? Let me know. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. And as always, thank you all for assembling with us. See ya.